You've landed at Spark Launch, the guide star for embracing what it means to be neurodiverse. I'm Mike Cornell, joined by CEO of Spark Launch, Chaya Malavarnam. Here, we navigate mental health triumphs and tribulations from all across the spectrum, charting a course to the shared experiences that unite us, and discovering how to embody the unique strengths within neurodivergent and neurotypical alike, igniting your spark and launching it into a better tomorrow. Hello there, I'm Mike.
I'm Chaya.
And today we're joined by Sophia Randall, a neurodivergent individual with 24 years of experience in the corporate world, a former diversity, equity, and inclusion committee lead, an entrepreneur, and a loving mom of 3 beautiful children. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody.
Hi, and Sophia, thank you so much for willing to come on the show and share your story. We are extremely grateful, and I'm sure the audience as well, as we learn all about your journey in corporate America.
And it's been a busy one, but I'm so excited to be here and share with you all.
Thank you. So tell us about your journey, how you got started, what was your inspiration to get on to a job, everything. What drove you to your journey?
Mm-hmm. Just being a young mom, you know, I had my first daughter when I got out of high school. So that prompted me to really want to get into, you know, I need to find work. I need to do something that's going to bring substantial money and stability into my life. So, of course, I did I was a rental car agent and all that stuff, but I always aspired to be like, I had this vision of that powerful executive with the corner office and all the windows around. And so I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be that head boss woman. And so, yeah, in my early 20s, I got on with a prominent credit services company that has over the years expanded. So they're very well known. I'm not going to say their name, but they're very well known. And that's how I got my foot into corporate, you know, starting off in a call center and just working my way up through different departments with that company until I got into process management. And the funny thing about it is that I was used to just certain things, certain habits, and trying to find my way. And I remember almost giving up on process work, and my mentor that was assigned to me just gave me a different way to view it. You know, basically, you brush your teeth in the morning, right? Think about how do you brush your teeth and break it down step by step, you know, and then when you think about it, there's like 50 different ways people brush their teeth, something just so simple. So it's kind of like, okay, now how do you measure that? Is your way faster than my way? Does your way waste a lot more water than my way? You know, so when I started to think about it, it sparked up like that natural thought process of thinking step by step and putting things together very quickly in my brain. So I then pursued that, worked my way up and got into training and facilitating, and then just got into doing a lot more process engineering work and working with executives. And then that just spiraled out 20 something years later. You know, I was a professional consultant, and that's doing more so project management work, process work, and supporting C-suite executives. But the biggest thing for me as a neurodivergent is that it became extremely exhausting because I did a lot of mirroring. So that my whole life, professional life, is looking at people, seeing what makes them successful, and then going on and just mirroring what works. And when you are not able to be yourself, it becomes mentally exhausting. but I did it. And I did it for so long and it became second nature to you lose yourself sometimes.
So very early on in your journey, you were taught to think differently. You were given kind of a formula to follow to climb up the ladder, the corporate ladder, and you did it. You did it diligently. You learned how to copy and embody that personality, which was not yours. One of the things that you told us here is your vision of that corner office with the windows and that nice place that you had in your head, and you wanted to get there. How did you get that vision? Where did that vision come from?
That vision just came from, at a young age, watching TV and seeing these successful women just be in control. And I think that's what attracted me, because in my brain at a very young age, I always felt I didn't have control. And, with that, there would be thoughts in my brain always running and having to maybe try to focus really hard and trying to find my way through. And it was hard. But if I was in control of other people and everything, then I can take on like this fierce persona, a boss lady. And I think that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be heard. I wanted people to listen to me. And I wanted to be just in control, not controlling, but in control of just what's around me and what's going on in my head. So that's what attracted me to that. I never wanted to work in an environment where it was chaotic, like fast food or shoe places or anything like that. I wanted it to be just an environment where it was direct and clear about what's going on. So that's what got me into the corporate world, and in that type of environment, because I did work retail prior, and I did work, I think my first job was at a bagel house. I was 15 years old serving bagels, and it was the most chaotic, pressure, intense thing at 8:00 in the morning. Everybody's coming to get their bagel and coffee before work and trying to remember people's orders. Oh my God. And trying to remember what I need to type in and the price. It was a lot. And I said, I can't do this right now. I can't do it. But so driving up, I took different experiences and I said, this is what is going to drive me there. So back, I want to say I think that was 7 years. So it's been 13 years ago, if not a little bit more. I got my corner office with all the glass. And in that particular job, I came on just as someone that worked in treasury management. And within 5 years, I got 3 substantial promotions and really moved my way up to, I'm like, this is it. I got my office with the door. And I don't have to deal with, face-to-face customers. And I'm in the financial department working directly with the chief financial officer and the VP of credit services. So I was very blessed in that area. However, due to reorganization and merging with another business group, our whole department got eliminated. So therefore, I had to start somewhere else. But that experience and looking at the demeanor and how people talk and what they say, how they joke, all of that became a part of me because that's what I'm taking to get me to the next level somewhere else.
One little thing I want to address. What really hit me was that you said because you didn't have control when you were a child, which happens to all of us, right? That's what a child doesn't have the power. You wanted to have that power because you wanted to be in control. It amazes me how visions are created from our childhood experiences and your dreams are made. And sometimes you wonder if those dreams are coming from a pure place or as a result of some experience we had in our childhood?
That's a good question. That's a good thought process with that right there. And actually, I never even thought about it to break it down like that. I think so. If we take it back in that direction, for me, so it's a few things that play into that, I guess, thinking about it like that. Number one, as a child, I had a lot of change in my life, and I did have some traumatic experiences that took place very young and early on. And there were situations that unfortunately have been traumatic enough to stay with me in my adult years. So being young, my mom we were used to one way of living. My mom married her high school sweetheart, everything. I was born, and my dad went off into the Air Force. And that, at a very young age, having the love of your life separate from you, and there was nothing you can do about it, played a part. And then being young, my mom got into religious studies, which then changed our life again. And it was a very strict religion. So all I've known before, celebrating holidays, this and that and the other, was gone. However, I did learn, because it was like a Bible school, Bible student situation. I did learn how to teach. I learned how to speak. I learned how to comprehend things in the Bible and make it my own. So that for me really was a foundation to facilitation and learning how to put information together in a way that is easy to understand when I repeat it out. The situation that was kind of traumatic made me feel like I never wanted to have this happen to me again. So what do I need to do? So I think having change and going through a traumatic experience does shape a vision of what you want to have for yourself, because those situations for me, I had no say. I had no nothing. I was little. I was 5 years old, between 2 and 5. So, but I can still kind of think back like, okay, well, this isn't how life's supposed to be. This isn't how I'm supposed to feel. People are supposed to love me. I'm supposed to do different things at that age versus what I was doing. And so for me, growing up into my teen years, I became a people pleaser. I didn't want anybody disappointed or happy or unhappy with me. I always want to make my mom happy. So whatever she said or she wanted, I did, regardless if I wanted to do it or not. And I made honor roll. I made presidential awards. I really excelled academically to just please my mom. And I wanted people to be happy with me, because there were sometimes I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel protected. I didn't even feel normal in a way, like I felt like I didn't belong here. So yes, that manifested into me doing something where I can control my life and control what's going on around me, and control my body and control everything that has to do with me representing and owning myself. I know it sounds a bit conflicting, because as a person with ADHD and OCD mirroring a lot, but in my heart of hearts, I never wanted to do things that was not of what I volunteered to do.
Yeah. So very early on, you learned that you desired to be accepted by the people around you, people who loved you, which in reality, you should think that people who love you should love you the way you are. But somewhere we learn that we have to be a certain type to be accepted by the boss, to climb up the ladder, to get that promotion. And so we try to morph into this being that we aren't. And so, yeah, now you can continue with your journey up the ladder. You're there, and you had figured out this formula for success. And you started applying and fine-tuning it. You had figured out mirroring. You knew exactly what to do to get where you wanted to go.
And it was hard work. Thinking back, one more thing I would add is that with my mom being a single mom with me and my sister, understanding and seeing this, I didn't know it when I was small, but as an adult, the sacrifices that she made for us. As a child, I was always, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to have to live this way. I don't want to do this. You always think of things that you want versus being appreciative of what you got because you're of sacrifices that people have made for you. But I was always a creative person. So I love drawing. I love playing music. I played the clarinet. And that was something that was gifted to me because I was one where I could, when music was played, I never studied for music or anything like that. I just knew if I can hear something and hear the notes, I can play it. And so I did that for many years and I started to write my own music and stuff. But the limitation with that is that I could not enjoy the whole experience because as a family that was very religious, there were songs that I could not play. There was events that I could not go to. There was a lot of things that limited my experience. And then I also had to think that I was raised to be a missionary, to go teaching the word of Christ in different lands, different countries. That wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't instilled in me to go to college or anything like that. It was instilled to me to be a teacher. And so taking that on and just doing things as an adult, I've learned, that right there, when you're limited, my creative area was in music, was in drawing. I loved writing. I can write books. I always wanted to write a book and get it published. Just having that done. In a way, I was like my dad. My dad can do math in his head like that. That's complex, and it's like, that those experiences, yes. When you grow up, you take that because now as a teenager or when you start to come into your own, you want to do what you want to do. But for so many years, starting at a young age, I knew that I needed to do certain things to be successful and make other people happy with me and like me. Because I couldn't tell my mom, as a mom, sometimes I get images in my head that just come and go. And sometimes they're really scary. I don't know how to handle it. I think I told my mom one time and she was like, we got to pray. We got to pray. Like there's things in me that I need to get out. So seeing that type of reaction, I stopped talking about it. No one is that normal to hear that? Is it normal that I could sit sometimes and just zone out while somebody's talking to me and I don't even realize it? There's things that I did at a young age where it wasn't necessarily a safe place to explore further what I was going through. So I kept it inside, and, how certain things made me feel or how I can watch a commercial or something and very upset to the point it hurts my heart, or different, that type of just emotion that's deep sometimes and I didn't know how to explain it, or how I knew certain things and don't know how I would know those type of things. So, yeah, it wasn't until recently in my 40s that I've learned to speak about these different gifts and experiences because you know what? There are more people like me and there are more people that are struggling with the same things that I experienced growing up and trying to make my way through this world.
Yeah, the world is not built that way. We're not allowed to express our emotions. As a child, that's not a thing, right? And in school, at home, we're supposed to suck it up and not cry and not
Exactly.
throw a tantrum and just behave. Just prim and proper and show up with a smile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
there are macro traumas and then there are micro traumas. No one calls micro traumas, but your brain registers them the same way as a large trauma. And then your mind naturally, biologically wants to create a safe space for yourself. And that's where the intersection of safety and control tend to come from, especially with neurodivergent individuals who are mostly, I always just use square peg round hole. Same thing. People are always kind of like trying to put you in there. You're trying to put yourself in there. And somewhere you kind of get lost, especially when you're kind of like undiagnosed. You don't really even understand you're supposed to actually be looking to who you are authentically. Like, what is your actual person? What do you actually do things for and want? And for me personally, I wanted to do like so much things related to like writing and art myself. And it was always a struggle because it had to be, I felt pressure to make it worth something if I was going to do it. And it made me kind of never properly start it because I had to jump to success immediately. Otherwise, I was wasting my time kind of thing, or I'd be letting someone down and would end up just kind of letting myself down ultimately. So in your career journey and where you've managed to like turn mirroring into a skill, like reframing it into the skill that has helped you, how do you balance being authentically yourself and that power of mirroring hand in hand with one another?
I became my authentic self, I would say, in my off time or with my very close friends that accepted me, accepted my quirkiness, accepted that sometimes I may speak really, really fast and excited about something, but because my brain's going so fast, my words might slur or I might say the wrong tense because I'm not thinking about tense. I'm not thinking about being grammatically correct. I'm not thinking about all those things. I'm just being free to express myself. In the work environment, not so much. And it also depends on the type of role or culture that I was in, and I would match that energy. So I would match when I was in a call center role, the drive, of course, is calls per hour, how many your whole time, how long you're on a call, how long you got a customer. And it became always like a whole running thing. You got to hit this. You got to be empathetic. You got to do this. You got to do that. You're going to get a bad grade if this happens, And so I had to adapt to that type of environment. When I then moved on to a more relaxed environment, I became more relaxed. I felt my self starting to come out in a way where I could joke a little bit more. I was creating presentations and doing things more on a creative side where I was able to say, okay, this is the information they want to convey. If I was a brand new student here, how would I be able to digest and accept this information? So that's when I started to feel, okay, myself is coming out. And then I could back up why I did something a certain way versus someone telling me, this is what I need to do. This is what I need. And they don't care about what's going on. They don't care if you have a different way of doing something. It didn't matter. So moving in different environments, it definitely played a part in how I presented myself. No one at work really knew the true Sophia at all. And shoot, when I come home, sometimes I don't even know the true Sophia until I get to decompress and just relax my mind. When it happens, what do? I was undiagnosed for a long, long time. I myself would sit down and replay the day in my head. What could I have done differently? What should I have said? That rejection dysmorphia syndrome, that definitely, I had a deep fear of people rejecting me. So I'd always try to think of things ahead of time. So when it comes back up, then I know how to respond to it. Kind of like self-evaluating the day every day. But you have to learn who you are and your strengths and your weaknesses. And the thing about it, what made something stand out to me is I went through like a DISC or a personality behavior assessment type of deal for work. And what I've learned is that my sweet spot, what I like to do is inverted and very closed personality. There you go. And then, I'm good in a certain area, but it also showed that professionally, I am extrovert and I am opposite of who I truly am as my internal personality. And I'm very good at it because I was trained to reflect this type of persona. And so that was kind of like the wake up call. Like, I want to do things that embraces me, and bring me out. And maybe that's why I'm so stressed all the time or hyper vigilant and jumping or always trying to look for, putting controls in place and things of that nature, so it depends on the environment. I would say right now, when I got out of the corporate world in February and made this decision, like, I'm going to start a business. I've always wanted to do this. Now's the time. Having creative control, working on my own schedule because of, 8:00 in the morning, my brain is not functioning and it's not happening. But for some reason, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I got this big burst of energy. I can do things on my own time, and it works for me because I feel like I'm more productive. I don't have to justify or tell people, hey, my brain is overloaded from all these different tasks and projects that I'm working on. I need a break. They don't understand that. However, I would say in consultancy, because you are kind of your own boss in a way, you do get to set your time and you make sure your client is happy. So that was a good medium for me as well. But it still wasn't who I was because I have to always have this professional front up because I am the expert. You can't let them see that you're not confident. Can't let them see that you may not be too sure about something, so always having this confident demeanor. And then being a woman, a Black female in a career that I'm literally the only person that looks like me in a room, that is definitely an area where I had to heavy mask. I needed to learn how to get people to laugh at my jokes, which were different, or to be able just to fit in with that and be taken seriously. Because if you're in a room full of alpha Caucasian men and you got something to say that may not go with what the crowd is talking about, you got to be able to back it up. And as a child, knowing that you didn't have a say, you really wasn't heard, you always told to be quiet and all of that, then it becomes to the point where I would speak up, but my voice would get shaky, like that nervousness, all of that, until I had to master that. Don't blink, don't look away, model that behavior.
What are your feelings now on that masking? Like, do you feel like now your ability to kind of like as a survival mechanism has become an extension of you, or do you still have a bit of like maybe not love-hate relationship with it, but I don't think none of us want to necessarily mask, obviously, but are you able to go into it without feeling like I'm putting myself far, at the back of the line and I'm instead playing this role?
It is kind of a love-hate thing, to be honest. I feel like right now in our world where our kids and society is going to be more acceptable of authenticity and to be more accepted of your individuality, who you are, seeing people in corporate now with tattoos showing and purple hair, those were things that I wasn't allowed to do or couldn't do at all when I was in those type of positions. So I feel like right now is a good time where people can start to really embrace and talk about who they are, because being unique is more acceptable. Not so much in the workplace just yet, but I feel like depending on what type of work you're doing will depend on your masking level. I feel like at home and at work right now, it's a difference. I would love to be able to show up when I'm ready and bushy tail, whatever time that is, to work. I would love to tell someone, I think what you're talking about is BS, and that's not how it's going to work, and it's not going to happen. Trust me, and or having to really just learn not to be so honest. So my biggest thing, and I had to learn still, is I'm very honest, and sometimes how I deliver something is not how it sounds in my head. And my delivery could be perceived as, you're mean or all this. And I'm like, I didn't say it like that. I didn't mean it like that. Oh, it's your tone. Your tone comes. Like, I was always getting that type of counsel in a way. And I said, well, I had to learn how to sugarcoat, give a feedback sandwich, and all these different things, because people didn't understand is that if I'm passionate about something, or I care about you or what's going on, I'm going to speak on it because I want it to go correctly. And it's not very much appreciated at all. So having to say things with a little bit more softness or, finesse to it was something I really, really, really needed to work on, because with my personality, tell me how you feel. Don't sugarcoat it at all. And I'm not one for all the fluff stuff. And having empathy really was something I had to learn. Took a long time to really learn that. And having different emotions, or that social component, that interaction, I had to really learn, because there's a lot of things that maybe was funny I didn't find funny, or I didn't realize my face was looking so disinterested in what you're talking about. And just different, like the social cues of things I had to really learn. So I feel like right now there is a bit more leeway in being your unique self, but there's still a long way to go, especially in the workplace, because your workplace, they're still working on those 1940 Industrial Revolution principles that was created back then. They're still working on having that hierarchy management system and telling people what to do, how they want to do it, all of that, and dictating things. And I feel like right now it needs to change, because as a process consultant that came in, my job was to say, from an outward experience, show me how you do something. That right there is going to make me an expert in it, because I'm going to learn it like that just from you doing it. And then I'm going to say, well, why do you do it like that? Like, I can ask the questions and say it how I want. Why is that the best way? Why do you do it? Why does it matter? All of those whys to get people to think, and then like, really, it doesn't matter. Or really, they get the same information on another report. Or really, we can't create a bot to do this manual work that takes you 4 hours to do in Excel, and have a bot do it, and you can work on something else. Like getting people to think differently, I really found as a good balance in a way with work and my personality, because then I'm kind of reflecting or teaching people how I think. So just because someone tells you to do something, does it add value? Is there a reason? Is it going to be rewarding for me, or some type of accomplishment? Does it fit a bigger picture? If not, why are you doing it? Why does it matter? And I thought like that at a very young age, but you couldn't tell somebody that's not going to work, or I don't see the point in doing that. Why does it matter? you wouldn't have a job very long.
Yes. Yes. I think like the secret hell that all like neurodivergers like live in is we make great overseers because we tend to be able to see cracks in everything. And we just don't fall in line with, there's neurodivergent masking and then there's neurotypical masking. And neurotypical masking are these antiquated systems that why you do it because the other person did. Okay, why did that person do it? Because another person did. And it just goes back and back and back. And ever since I was a child, I would on literally anything throughout the day, like, but that's not a good way to do that. Like doing this would be easier, doing this. And my parents would get frustrated with me because I would just be like, but there's an actual easier way to even just clean. Like I could clean my room in a way better way if you let me do it and like the way that I want to do it. And we do like become these overseers and it frustrates us because we don't want to live in this weird, pointless, structured environment. We see the arbitrary. And it becomes so difficult to like navigate the world when you see that arbitrary.
Right.
Because even when it's pointed out to people, no matter how you do it, it doesn't feel like they ever want to actually change. And, we made progress when it comes to seeing neurodivergency, just the fact that you're an autism diagnosis that people don't look at it and go like, well, does the kid like trains? He doesn't. Well, he must not be autistic. People don't do that so much anymore. But going back to like the corporate culture, how structural infrastructure changes do you think could be made to the corporate world that would better like accommodate particularly neurodivergent individuals?
I feel like with COVID, that opened up a whole new world that I feel as a professional was more neurodivergent friendly because the amount, everybody's thought process and the way their autism or where they are on that spectrum or level is different. My ADHD doesn't look like my son's or my oldest daughter, but there are certain things that are consistent. And for me, the energy every day, hearing the dreaded alarm clock go off at 6:30 in the morning, just to get prepared and get ready to go into this office and sit down and work took a lot out of me. And it was a routine. And of course, I hate routines like that. I like to know what's going on, but don't let me go with the flow. Let me feel it out type of deal. So with COVID, remote working 100% of the time was, wow, great. I don't have to go try to find and hide out with a quiet place. I don't need to be locked up in a room because I can't focus because I'm getting interrupted 3-4 times with different questions. Not to say it's a bad thing, but for me, if I am interrupted so many times and I'm literally in my brain going back to the beginning every single time I'm interrupted because I need to pick back up on that thought process. And then I don't get it done, or it takes me 5 hours to do instead of just 30 minutes. Sitting back and having an atmosphere that makes you productive. I feel like with a lot of people don't realize in offices and in that type of environment where there's multiple people, you see people like, for me, I always had music going on in my head unless I was in a meeting or something that effect, because you have the smell of foods, you have noises, you have people laughing, you have someone in a call, a meeting, and they can't hear what's going on. So all these different distractions, depending on what's going on, overwhelms me, in a way where I can't focus. I literally will be at work and not productive. I would try to be productive, but I can't. And before you know it, it's time to go home. So that environment, I don't think employers or businesses understand that with this new generation and coming in, and we're finding more and more people learn uniquely or it has different learning abilities, that it is important to have a mindfulness room, a quiet area, or a sensitivity where you might have different color lights like blue or reds or yellows that are light in a room with maybe some waves, ocean waves going on, to get different senses going to have creative moments. Some businesses call it mindfulness rooms, some call it sensitivity rooms. So having different spaces is a plus. Also, when you are in meetings with someone that is neurodivergent, for me, I had to always sit back and process something first to understand it. So a lot of times I will be in a meeting and listen and take in, and then later, once it's done or the next day, I have questions or I have something to say. But the expectation in the office is at that moment, you're an active participant. And I had to learn how to do that. And it was very hard because I'm trying to think of how I'm going to say something while I'm trying to listen. And then I miss out on information because something is not going to happen. Or I may not even know what the heck is going on in the meeting. So I think there are certain expectations or competencies that people expect in the office that, isn't something that is natural for us. And employers need to understand it. For instance, going into some of the things that I recommended is when I was in my DEI role, chairman, looking at what the current policies and procedures are. What are the things that happen if something like this or like this happens? And for example, one of the things I had to work on is how do you create a growth culture? How do you encourage upskilling? Well, I'll take it as, if you have consultants, they are on client time 40 hours a week, and home-based business is requesting X amount of time to take some type of training module or something. It then becomes, okay, well, what's important and what's going to give me money? My client. So this is going to fall behind. So I had to think of, okay, well, how can we encourage this? The business is going to have to then make it so the person thinks it's valuable or the person thinks that it is worth it. What do? You have to equate it with a reward system. Am I going to get paid for doing this training? Is it on my time? Is it on your time? Is there a certain type of fluff, like the first 100 people will get a $25 gift card or something? Like, what will make me want to do that? And so we built in a reward system, even breaking the time up. Some people think like me, oh gosh, that's a 2-hour training video. I don't even have 2 hours. I work through my lunches. But if I broke it up, 30 minutes here and there, whatever, I will get it done as long as it saves my spot. So I think the expectations, we can get what you want to have done. I think employers need to understand that, but don't tell me how to do it. Tell me what your problem is, or tell me what I need to do. What's your expected end result? Don't tell me how to get there. And I feel like a lot of times with us, we're being told what to do on how to get certain deliverables, certain things done. And then when we don't feel that it's worth it, what happens? Or we don't like how it's done, we begin to stress, we get overwhelmed, we procrastinate, we miss deadlines, all because we don't see it the way, and we kind of get stuck, that paralyzed, like, I don't know what to do. So I think with jobs, a lot of jobs, they need to trust the person that they hire to get the job done. They need to trust that they did their due diligence on getting the right person for the right job. I feel like in the interview portion of a job, if you have someone that struggles with having the process, have baseline questions that are important be sent to the person a couple of days ahead of time, or, whatever, so they can have time to think of these star answers, situation, task, action, and be able to sound like they know what they're talking about instead of rambling or getting off course or whatever their experience as a nervous reaction. I feel like then once the person is onboarded, okay, how do you get them to be productive? Make them feel valued. because all the times we have these things going on, we don't feel valued. We don't feel heard. We want to know what we're trained. Tell me what you want and we'll do it. There's no drive for me to do anything else. But if you took the time to know really what my strengths really are, and instead of making it an interview, like all these questions, have it a conversation, I feel like employers would truly know a person, not their rehearsed person, to come into that job. They will know how I think, how I talk when I'm relaxed. And then they would truly know, okay, well, you know what, Sophia, this role that I have here may not be, because, roles are really stripped down and broken up to specific tasks. You might really be good at doing this right here. We can really use your help in this, because the way you are good in picking out patterns, or the way you are good at reading reports and looking at the inconsistencies. And then you can immediately think of solutions, that you might be better over here. Is that something you would like to try and do? Like, I feel like if people really took the time to know a person, then they could really create these roles, or maybe not even have anything defined. Just be productive and make us all great. Because I feel like in that type of environment, you then give that person empowerment. You set an expectation, but you allow them to own the process and how to get it done. And you're using their strengths, so then they feel confident naturally in what they're doing, and it's less stress. I feel like when employers do that, they would truly get the best work out of people. And reward them, shout them out, give them that motive to keep going, because it's important. We need to know that what we're doing is working and it's good, or else we're going to lose interest in it. We ain't going to do it. So I feel like those things could help. I feel like understanding, if you see me visually check out in a conversation because you're hounding, or the way you're talking to me, or all of this, we need to come back at another time, because whatever is being said is not being absorbed. And I have things I want to say, but you're not going to like it. So I feel like I always tell, with managers when I'm coaching and leadership, know your employees, know their treasures, what matters to them, what's important to them, and then incorporate that into the team environment, into the role. Respect them. If they're not able to come into work because they just put out a 60-hour work week and their brain is literally dead, respect that. Don't tell them, well, when can you come in? Or when can you? We're not machines. We have beautiful minds, and sometimes we need a little bit of a break to have maintenance work done. I feel like humanizing the rules with management is way better than having these grandiose expectations that, if they were, any executive was in a role, will not be able to accomplish.
So what we're asking for is really empathetic leaders, right? It's, when we talk about empathy, it's not just going to some training program and just, it's not a check mark that you get for yourself, but it's really about understanding the other person and how the other person operates, what value that person brings, because there's so much treasure out there, as you said it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about uncovering those treasures and using them in a way that honors that employee and not penalize on the methodologies. I think that we've all suffered from it. And that actually shut me off personally in my childhood, because I was not allowed to speak the truth. I think that is what all of us experienced, because we could see through the BS. And for me, I refuse to morph myself into somebody. So that kind of worked for me. But what happened is I shut off my voice. I never spoke up. I rebelled. I was a quiet rebel, but I never spoke up, and I didn't know my own power, my own inner strength.
You were the yes person.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to suck up because I saw a lot of people doing that. But then what happened as a result of that is I became so small. I didn't have the courage to express my feelings. So it hurts in whatever way you take it.
Yeah.
Right. It hurts very deeply because even the quiet ones, I'm telling you, have a lot to say, have so much wisdom, and we don't have to penalize people for the certain words that they use, because I've been told, oh, that word isn't right, or I'm not saying it properly. And I think what happens with neurodivergent people is because we are so sensitive, we take it all in, and it can manifest in different ways within our system. And so I was learned to shut off. And so, yeah, the environment, I think you mentioned, plays a huge role. And so with leadership, I think understanding the person and getting all the gifts out, all the talents, because every single person has some kind of a superpower. Let's use it, because when you're living in those superpowers, you're thriving, and use it. If somebody likes to organize, let's give them that job, right?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody wants to generate ideas and think differently, let's encourage that. And as you said, if I'm exactly like that, because while I'm speaking, I get a million thoughts, right? I'm processing and it's going all over the place, but it takes time for it to settle inside my body and speak up. And that's fine. That's totally fine, right? We should encourage different ways of expressing, and just so that people actually enjoy. You're spending 40 hours a week at work, and we should all be loving it.
Right. You hit on a very important point that I failed to mention, but it is a critical point, in a way where setting or having an expectation in a professional environment where you need to be perfect grammatically, or say things a certain way, or use certain words. And I remember I had this one manager, and she was a literary study. That's what was her degree in English. And I remember I had a very important presentation. I was so nervous. This was before I decided to get medicated and before I had a diagnosis. And when I got nervous, my hands would sweat, I would be fidgety and all these different things. And I said a few words, but I used the wrong tense, or I used the wrong word, said are, is, and I remember coming out of that meeting, I knew I messed up, because as soon as I said it, I was like, in my head, that wasn't right, but I didn't want to backpedal or anything, because then that's going to make me ramble and mess up the rest of my thought process. As soon as I got out of that meeting, she called me in her office and said, you did a good job, but I just want to give you some feedback that I noticed. And I noticed when you use this word, you said this word, and she started to do that after like a few minutes, just one little mistake. And I started to feel really dumb. I started to feel like, what does it matter? And knowing it created an additional stress, because every meeting that she was in, I then really felt the need to focus on my words. So I started talking very slowly. I noticed that I wasn't as playful with my voice or connecting, because I was so focused on saying the right words. And then I remember, okay, well, if that's going to make me sound dumb, I'm going to pick up big words and use big words like trepidation and all these things. And I would learn big words in the meeting and use them a lot. Like my goal was every day I would find a word that is not commonly used and use it multiple times a day. And so that hindsight is, yes, she made me a better speaker, but it also stunted me with my confidence. And my thing was, what did it matter? What does it matter if I'm trying to convey information, listen to what I'm trying to convey. Don't worry about, oh, she slurred this word, or oh, she's speaking too fast, oh, now she's slow, or this. Listen to what I'm trying to convey. Because sometimes it's hard for us to I need to get this thought process out. And then if we have a question, and my goal in going into meetings and make sure I anticipate every type of question that could come up, so I'm prepared with an answer. I had to learn to give myself grace, because that woman completely crushed my confidence and my ability to perform to the standards that I know I could perform at. And my value and my worth went down for a very long time. And it started to be so stressful to me that every time I saw her or whatever, I would get physically ill. I would get depressed. I would have so much anxiety. I bit my nails down till they bled. And it just became such a stressful, toxic environment for me just because of her. And some people are like, well, that's not nothing. Just ignore it. No, because what she was saying to me equated to, you're dumb. Oh, you don't have this, so you shouldn't even be allowed in this room. Or just because they're important, they need to be spoken to with a certain level of grammar. Like, I started to create all these different expectations and scenarios that honestly wasn't true. It was just her opinion. And so one of my mentors came to me and said, Sophia, it doesn't matter what title they have. Think of it like this. Everybody goes into a bathroom in a stall. If you get nervous, think about them sitting down on the toilet. And when I literally did think, like, when I saw a VP, when I saw a CEO, I would get so nervous because I want to be presented a certain way. But then I'm like, they're human just like me. And they go to the bathroom just like me. And they walk around naked or whatever, just like me. So I don't need to present myself a different way. I don't need to have this standard that society makes as a status quo. And I think once I really learned that became a confident. I also had another woman said, and it was in a neurodivergent group, this is what I appreciated. She was the CEO. And she said, I wouldn't apologize. I want to say up front that I know I may misspell some words or something because I'm typing fast or I might be talking fast, but it's not important. Don't worry about that. And she, set the standard. I'm neurodivergent. She set that expectation up front. So it's like, okay, you're comfortable in disclosing that up front and not expecting people to treat you differently. But she was living her authentic self. And because she didn't know me, she was setting a boundary, a bar to say, I know I may mess up, but don't worry about it. It's because of this. And then she was a very smart woman, very smart. So I say that with environments, managers need to not focus on things that really don't matter. Managers don't understand that certain things like always pointing out a weakness or always sticking for things that shouldn't matter is a confident destroyer. Yes, it is important to, set a different expectation at time, but I was not fresh out of college or anything like that. I wasn't a newbie and this wasn't my first rodeo. So knowing when to say something, is essential. Like you said, being an empathetic leader, being an emotional leader is where we have that connection, because we're not going to get everything 100% and do it 100%. But you know what? We do it good. What does it matter?
And I have to tell that, so the people who are receiving that message of being perfect, to learn to ignore that and trust your inner self, that authentic self, because also I've realized that when we focus on perfection, on the words, on the delivery, on sounding right, we're going to be less powerful on making an impact. And so it's all about making an impact and not the methodology. And so it's okay to not be perfect. And it's perfectly perfect not to be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to set all these boundaries that, okay, so I went through Toastmasters, public speaking. I did all these things. I even went through a grammatic class just because I thought, I don't know how to write in English. Do I really not know verb tenses? Like that confidence was like, you do all these extra things because of perfection. And I am a perfectionist, especially I will take time to make sure and go over everything. Oh, why did I make this mistake? But then I had to learn, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to, it's okay to make a mistake. You don't have to be perfect. But when you're mirroring and you are trying to be like this type of example, you need to be perfect and you need to do it well. So when someone's sets up something and you, oh my God, I missed that internal dialogue that goes on inside is crushing, And so I feel like, it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to do all these things that society says don't do. Women, when you sit down, make sure you cross your legs at the ankle, like all these different expectations that, okay, it might be nice. Yes. Learn how to be, nice at the dinner table and polish, but it doesn't have to define your work, and don't stress if you mess up. Incorporating more of a reward innovative system in the work environment versus demerit or always pointing out the negative of what someone does, because you're going to get better performance out of a person that feels like they're valued. And it goes back to that childhood and things. You don't feel valued because if you mess up or you want to do and people please, but value is important. And focusing on what people do right, by sense of nature, whatever you found wrong will clear itself up. You don't need to point out every little thing. If I keep on doing things that I'm confident in and you keep telling me great job or, this, oh my God, I never even thought about that. I'm glad you pointed that out. Or you really went above and beyond, because then we start to be more of a creative thinkers. I don't expect always to go above and beyond, but if someone's asking for this type of information and report, I may think, you know what, they might want this, or this would help with this situation. And it's not going to take me a long time to pull it together. Let me just add it in and then tell them, I thought you might like this because it tells you this is why it's happening, instead of them having different thoughts. So therefore, you're creating your success when you start to allow yourself to think in a way that, one, we're proactive thinkers and stuff. We think of every scenario, we overthink. So don't tell someone, oh, we didn't ask for that, so why did you waste time putting it together? Well, you want me to go above and beyond, but then when I do, you're talking about time. The value is I gave you something that you didn't have all in one place. And it took me less time to put it together for you. So having those type of more reward system in a way, and it may also be words of affirmation, who knows, but don't always pick out the negative in people. Like Michelangelo pointed out, it's so easy to point out negatives. It's very easy, but it is a skill set to see beauty in everybody.
And also negative is from that person's point of view. It's just from one angle and doesn't define the person's worth, right? So it's only from that. So it's really important to separate that from the truth. So it is, and it's so important for the neurodivergent community to kind of like to shut those negative comments off, because they'll keep coming. They come, but it's up to us to build that wall, that boundary, the fort around us, which will not block and not affect us, because we cannot control other people. We cannot control how people behave, but we have power within ourselves to move to an environment that is conducive, that respects us. And also, if we are in places that we can't help, those negative comments are coming at us, to build that fort. It's a learned skill for me. I never had that. I would just take in everything and that.
Yeah.
But we can learn to block it off. I have crystal. I saw you have crystal.
Yes,
I know. I have
yes.
that. I know. I just so much that helps a lot to block off some negativity. Keeps us grounded. So we can do things to protect ourselves and speak up like what we're doing right now.
The more people know.
Yeah.
The more people know.
Yeah. Use people as resources. We're all individual islands and we're all our own ecosystem. How can you go to that ecosystem and what could aid you from that ecosystem? And that goes for neurotypical and neurodivergent alike. Just that's how you should treat others, particularly in a professional relationship, is you have this person here as a resource. They are not a thing where you, like old silent film where it's just the people marching to work and gray building all dressed in gray. Like that doesn't actually promote productivity in any real way. Everyone wants to feel part of a team, and you're hiring an ecosystem. And when you're dealing with neurodivergent people, you're interacting with a very vast, different ecosystem. And we tend not to respect that out in the world. We don't respect other people's ecosystems. We like to say to err is human, but we don't actually practice it.
That is right. And also, they need to look at successful businesses that do encourage innovation, that really may attract neurodivergence because they're special skills. Like you take the Google environment. I always go back to Google or even Microsoft or whatever. The environment there is colorful, it's bright. You have quiet rooms, you have nap stations, you have game rooms. You have all these different things based on what you feel like for the day. You're not constrained to your desk. You can move around and be free. You can go work out in the gym on your lunch break if you need to relieve some stress. You can go sit outside in a treehouse on the campus if you feel like being outside and getting some sun. All these different environments create a productive space to do what you need to do. If you're coding, if you're looking at all these numbers and data that could be strenuous on the eyes and the brain, like all that type of behavioral psychology goes in hand with understanding your employees, the people that are essentially important to making your business successful. And I think that's what's important and why a lot of kids or companies are struggling with productivity in the workplace. They're struggling with high turnover rates. They're struggling with low performers because people, I need a job and here I am, and then you waste 10 years there and then what? And so I feel like taking from environments that are innovative is really what should happen. Even if it's something small as putting artwork on the walls that are attractive to the eye, different colors, different textures, whatever. I remember there was one client I had, they had this big hallway and it was an empty, long hallway, but they had these big pieces of art from different employees that they showcased in this hallway. They had some sculptures, they had, depending on whatever the theme was, and they had certain employees that want to contribute, and their art was showcased. So I thought that was phenomenal because it's showing value to those employees that love art or could draw, and, showcasing it. And it became a nice walk to take in when I felt stressed out and needed to take 5-10 minutes. So doing different things like that may highlight employees' talents and creating an environment is is important and is the way to go with that, because we are all different. And then I also feel like even neurotypical people would release some of that stress as well. You don't have to be doing things a certain way. We're human. We're not, as you said, robots in a gray building. We like expression. We like color. We like to laugh. We like to do things and feel appreciated.
So I think before we close off, I want you to tell us how mirroring, what impact did it do to your system and your mental health, your physical health, and how did you realize all of this, and what steps have you taken to honor yourself?
So mirroring for so long has become second nature to me. And especially in the work environment or different environments where I feel like I need to be extra to be respected or valued. When you do that for so long, it does weigh on the body. And unfortunately, I did have times, where I had to take months and months of a mental break. So in my mid-20s, I was diagnosed with chronic anxiety and depression, general anxiety and depression. And then that kind of morphed. I ended up having fibromyalgia and IBS, all these different things that's related to stress. And it was hitting my body like a ton of bricks. And I had to get on some medication to help stabilize my moods and all of this. Well, I made changes. I even gained a whole lot of weight, and just not knowing how to function, being highly stressed all the time, where I would get panic attacks just driving down the road. And I had to change my environment. I had to change what I was doing. I had to learn how to release that type of fight or flight feeling in a healthy manner. So I got addicted to going to the gym. I would work out like 2-3 hours, because it was before I knew I had OCD, but I had to go to the gym. I had to be at the gym a certain period of time. I had to do certain things at the gym because I felt better about myself. So it became a must. And if I didn't go to the gym, my whole day was off. I felt bad about myself. I, beat myself up. But when I changed that environment, the medications I was on for panic attacks at that moment and everything, it went away. I didn't have IBS anymore. My body wasn't in constant pain. I could go to sleep. I wouldn't sleep for long periods of time. And so when I got formally diagnosed, I was off and on for anxiety medicine and things like that. But I got formally diagnosed, I would say, just 2 years ago with ADHD type inattentive and bipolar depression and OCD. And so for me, it was a light bulb that went off, because I'm like, this is me. This is why this is happening. This is why my brain don't shut off at times, or this is that. But it's stress induced. Like when I'm heavily stressed, it wears on your body. When you're constantly mirroring because you're trying to emulate something you think is successful or you think it's going to be a benefit to you, it's not natural. It's not something that it's like studying an assignment. You got to keep practicing. And so it is unnecessary stress put on the body, because you're trying to fit in an environment that is not natural for you. And you're trying to do things and think certain way and talk certain ways and dress certain ways. And you want to be accepted. You want to be taken a certain way. So it's very important. And you then start to become very hypervigilant. You then become very critical. You become a person that you just don't want to be around if it was you. So for me, I had to learn a lot about myself, a lot of internal thinking. I did have to seek therapy to understand that there are just some things that society puts on us that is just a cultivation of someone setting a standard that really isn't real. really doesn't matter. And I had to learn to love myself. I had to learn to seek out what I love and what makes me happy, because I will always get jealous of people that, oh, they're so good at this. I wish I would find something I'm good at, or, oh, they're walking in their purpose and, finding your purpose. I'm like, how do you find your purpose? And it's like, you have to do that work inside, and you do set boundaries. I'm no longer a yes person. I don't care who it is that's asking me anything. If I need off and I need a rest day, mentally, physically, I don't feel bad for taking a day and not doing absolutely nothing. I used to, because I felt the need to always be busy, always be doing something. And I felt bad when I would just be sitting there watching TV and I had to learn, you know what? It's okay. Take the time, relax. And so mirroring, yes, may get you very far. I mean, I got making a 6-figure job and no one knew that I didn't have a degree. No one knew that I didn't go to this big college or anything like that at the time. No one knew anything about me because it was an inherited expectation that I met in their mind based on how I presented myself. And so I say this to say the stress, the amount of money, my body breaking down, getting sick a lot, my kids feeling the energy that I have going out. And it affects not just you, it does affect the people around you. And so it's important to love and value yourself enough that if someone doesn't like how you're presenting yourself or someone doesn't like what you're saying, whatever, they can kick rocks because you need to be your authentic self for your health. And if they don't value your ability or what you bring to the table, it's okay because you don't need them to validate who you are. So I say, okay, there are sometimes it's natural for us to mirror. We learn it at a very young age. I used to be able to see people on TV and mirror how they talk, their accent and facial expressions, everything, and it became second nature. I still do it when I see something funny and I'll repeat it. And I don't know what I'm doing, but then I can mimic them. But you don't need it as a survival mechanism. And I think I had to learn that. And now that I've learned that, and now that I've gotten out of environments that were literally eating me up health-wise, I'm happier. I'm not drained in my face with color or no color, or walking around with raccoon eyes, or, overeating because I'm stress eating, or, I do things that encourages me to be me and allow myself grace. Allow yourself grace. Give yourself permission to step back. I feel like we are our most critical people, especially people that are trying so hard to fit into a box when they're a circle. So have grace. Give yourself permission to sit at the beach and be okay with it. Give yourself permission to read a book and be okay with it. You don't have to do everything every moment because you are your investment. You, nothing else, nobody else but you. And you, if you have a family, a spouse, kids, whatever, they're going to need you to be yourself because then you're going to be happy and you're going to get that happiness internally. It's not going to be fake external because, oh, you landed the job because you answered all the star benefits and all of this. You don't have to do that. We take all these different medications and all this stuff. Like for me, I do take medicine to help me focus with my ADHD. I felt the need to do that because I was supporting 2 CDIOs, one globally and one on the U.S. side, having to get a annual DEI report put together, global and this. And I was stressed out. I was so stressed. I was working until 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Like my kids, my son was complaining. I was stressed out because I wanted the work to be perfect. And then I felt like my brain was just 20 tabs open, 5 tabs playing music, and I don't know what to do here. I had to get medicine to help me focus. I needed it to be successful in my role, but that medication took away my creativity. It took away my ability to feel like myself internally. And so I'm not saying and giving medication a bad name. We all take it for our reasons, if whatever, like I do need to take it, but I'm not on such a high dose anymore. And, I do things that make sense to me. So yeah, I'm not making that 6-figure income like I used to do or any of that. But you know what? My neck doesn't hurt anymore. My back doesn't hurt anymore. I'm not like jumping or stressed out or barking at people just because they ask a question. You do what you have to do to fit in this world to survive, but don't let it change you. It's important that you know who you are. And now it's okay to say what you need to say. You don't have to mask that, oh, I'm neurodivergent. Oh, I have these indivisible disabilities. I have things that they might not hire me for, because be realistic, we are some of the most hardest working people and we put out so much. It just needs to be a good relationship, a good environment to bring those gifts out.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us, with those listening. Thank you for sharing yourself with the show. Obviously, you've found your purpose, and it's a purpose that encompasses all of you as well, and that's really wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. How can anybody listening catch up with you and find you, your business?
Well, I am on LinkedIn. Currently, my name's Sophia Randall on LinkedIn. My business is called Uniquely Loved. It's my first storefront. I am still working on that. It is a work in progress. I mean, my God, e-com digital products is very old. I mean, there's so much to choose from, but that is something, I have a Facebook page called Uniquely Loved. So please feel free to like that page. I will be heavily putting out some sales and discounts once I get a good hand on my products. I'm just taking my time with it because I want to make sure I do things that mean something. They're especially curated products. They're unique. And I call it Uniquely Loved because we are all unique and we need love. And so I do have a special neuro spicy spot for things that we like to do and fidget with and colorful or plan. That is definitely represented on my storefront. Email me, whatever works. All my contact information is on LinkedIn. And I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your story. And if you have any tips on just how to time box or things that will be a benefit to someone else, please share that as well.
I'll definitely be sure to put all those links in the show notes for anybody listening. Chaya, where can everybody find Spark Launch?
At sparklaunch.org. And you can also find Spark Launch on social media at _Spark Launch, and me on LinkedIn. And thank you, Sophia, again. It was such a pleasure. Your honesty, it touched us, and it's going to touch our audience. And we are extremely grateful for your presence today.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this conversation. It was just a good feed of information, and you guys allowed me just to speak. So I enjoyed this moment, and I hope that it reaches the right people and it resonates, for change. I hope that it does move for change, and that's what's important.
Sure. Thank you again, and definitely have to have you back on sometime.
I will.
Many times possible.
I would love to.
We'll see you next time.